Bookseller Crow, almost live.
Good evening, everyone. Hello. Welcome to Bookseller Crow. We're really excited tonight because we have Chris Neill interviewing his friend Isy Suttie. And for you, those of you who don't know Chris Neill, he is an acclaimed writer and has his fourth series called Enigma on Radio 4 at the moment. And he started off as a stand-up, so we'll see how funny he is still. And Isy Suttie is here as well, and she is going to be talking about her new debut novel, Jane is Trying, and as you'll probably be aware, she's already written her memoir, and also a radio series, Love Letters, which won a gold Sony. So she's a brilliant all-rounder, I'd say, and an actress, sorry. You probably know that as well. But I won't go on anymore. So please put your hands together and give them a very warm welcome. Oh, shut the door!
Why can't the door stay open?
Because you have to see the birds.
Oh, I see. Oh. You have to see the birds. Look at the birds. There we are. Darling, could you do the water?
Yes. Chris has broken his hand.
I haven't. Someone said to me, I've broken a finger, and someone said it was like a trial for being an old person. I had a slight fall in the garden that I can't quite work out how I did. So I have to sort of, I see, I can write notes, now I can't write anything, so I just have to hope that I've written the right words here.
But it does look like you've been having a fight in Wetherspoons.
It so does. That's what caused it to close down. It got so rough in there. There we are. Well, we're going to talk about Isy's book, aren't we? Yeah. And other things. And I thought, well, we both thought, if you have an urgent question to put to Isy, maybe you could put your hands up and let us know. We don't need to all do it at the end. We thought that was a quite nice thing, wasn't it? So
you know that thing, I don't know how many of you have been to these events, but sometimes at like 45 minutes, like, has anyone got any questions? And then your mind goes blank and you can't. Yeah. I can't anyway.
And then one person puts their hand up and goes, do you think you should be better? And then we go, right, okay, no, that's great. Well, it's been a lovely evening, so we thought we'd try and avoid that, and if we could do some throughout, make it a sort of group effort. So there we are. But I could do the first one. So this is Isy's new first novel. You've written a memoir already, haven't you?
Yes.
The actual one, and then but this is the first novel, Jane is Trying, and it is for sale tonight. Let's just put that out there, and but we're gonna talk about the book and anything else that sort of comes up along the way. I obviously, having done my work and the fact that Isy is a friend, have read the novel, and I have to say it's a fantastic novel. It's a very clever combination of being very funny in places and very moving, and there's a really strong propulsion with the story. There are various elements which propel the story along, which we won't talk about possibly, but there's a really strong narrative drive. And one of the things I did want to ask you, Isy, was did you know where it was going when you were writing it, or did it sort of develop?
Well, both really. So I did have a plan, because I always think I hadn't written a novel before, and when I had the conversation about writing one, I had a different editor. I didn't know that editors move around quite a lot, so I had one editor who was like 10 years younger than me, and it was like really weird to have a meeting, and I was like, you're younger than me? Oh yeah, I'm just getting older. And she was really nice, and she said, have you thought about writing a novel? And I said, yes, I'd like to write one. And she said, well, write down an idea. And then she left to start a Mexican street food business. So I never saw her again. I imagined this meeting. Anyway, her name was Jane, which is sort of half what I called it, Jane. And then I got a different editor, and then I took so long to write the proposal because I had another kid. That she then left, not to start a Mexican street food business, I don't know what she wanted to do. So then I didn't have an editor for ages. Actually, that was quite good because I sort of still had a potential deal with the publisher,
Right.
but I wasn't assigned an editor.
Okay.
And it
But
gave
was
me
that quite hard?
freedom.
Was anyone in touch with you going, what's happening? Is
No,
it-
and me and my literary agent sort of did it between us.
Right.
But the one who went to start the Mexican street food business, I'd said to her jokingly, maybe I should read a book about how to write a novel, and I thought she'd say, "Oh no, darling," and she was like, "Yeah, you should." Oh yeah, probably should actually.
Which
But
one did you choose?
So I read two. I read Into the Woods,
Oh, yeah.
which some of you might have read, which is very good, and that's a bit. I think it's a bit longer and it's good. It's a bit, perhaps a bit more kind of serious. And then I read the one that you recommended, which is called Take Off Your Pants,
Oh, yeah.
which sounds really dodgy.
Yeah.
But it's the American pants.
Yeah,
isn't
my,
it?
my cousin's wife is a romance novelist, and she recommended it, but she churns these books out. So I was going, oh my god, it's really hard work to write a book, isn't it? She goes, yeah, sometimes it can take as long as 6 months. And then she recommended, so I recommended this to Izzy, and it does, yeah, and it is like, you go,
Brilliant.
but it's really good. It's basically going, don't let any shit stand in your way, just get on and do it, really.
Yeah, and it gives like Pocahontas and Jaws, and it like shows you what all stories have in common in a really kind of pure way. It's almost like if you'd never turned a computer on, it's telling you how to use Microsoft Word and Excel, not necessarily how to like reboot the whole thing. But
Yeah.
do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I think,
It's
yeah,
really
those
clear.
sort of, and Into the Woods as well, I think, which is, because it's often about screenplay, Into the Woods, isn't it? It's about TV writing and film
Yeah.
writing things. But it is that about how to structure a story. So I just wonder,
Yeah.
when you, did you like really work at that, on that proposal, so that when you sat down to write the first sentence of the first scene or wherever it is you chose to start, that you kind of had that sense? Or did it still not help when it came to it?
No, it did really help, and I did work really hard on the kind of this happens then, and then there has to be this inciting incident and so on.
Yeah.
And I did, and then I knew the structure of it, but there was a kind of, I didn't know how it would end, but I knew it would, that what I wanted to happen to her emotionally, but not how it would happen. But I found it extremely useful. But I had written a few scenes before I started.
And do you find that something you do, that you'll write a scene that might end up 2/3 of the way through just because of it's something else
yes.
to write?
Yes, I did, and I felt like I knew. The character of Jane is, she's quite an anxious person, isn't she? But she's also quite funny and a bit arrogant, and she has to move back to her hometown. She's quite snobby at first about moving back, and it was nice to know kind of the essence of her.
Yeah.
Through.
Was she
writing
always
these
your
short
central
bits
character?
before I started writing it in earnest? Yeah. But it was quite different at the beginning with the Mexican street food girl. It was about her dad dying, and it
Right.
was really different actually. And there was a threesome in it where the guy was just walking around trying to talk about sport, and the girls were ignoring him, and it was kind of quite funny.
We've all
but-
been there.
Yeah. But I knew it just didn't quite work.
Yeah.
But I kind of had, and that's what I mean about having no editor. It was quite lovely to sort
Yeah.
of go, I'm going to try this, and then.
And is that how, do you think, working through all those ideas that didn't sort of go anywhere, do you think that's how you developed the character that she became?
No, I think she sort of, I knew
She
always
was,
what she was.
right,
Yeah.
right.
It was just more the situation to put her into, I think.
Yeah. There is so I don't know if any of you have read the book so far. So there's this central character, Jane, who ends up moving home, doesn't she, back to her parents. So she comes from a little town called Foley, which is, am I right in saying it's slightly based on where?
Yeah, it's slightly based on where I'm from,
Which is
in Derbyshire.
in
Yeah.
Matlock, and one of the things I really, there's a lot of very funny stuff about the character Jane says something or thinks something, and she goes, I'd have never thought that when I lived in London. And it's like these completely two different mindsets that go on. But there are lots of really brilliant characters in the book, but I found the character of the town as important as any other character in it. What was it? Does it feel to you that character of the town was vital?
Yeah, it did actually, but I've never heard it put like that. Yeah, I think it did, and it wasn't. Although it kind of was based on Matlock, I made it smaller than Matlock.
Right.
And there are. I don't know if anyone's been to Matlock, but maybe you come from a similar place. It's quite a small market town, but it's really quite bohemian and quite creative. There's a lot of people in. Like I was at school with the lead singer from Gomez and stuff, and it's sort of quite a kind of liberal place, really. And it was a really great place to grow up. But there were quite a lot of like characters, around, and there's quite a lot of drug taking, to be honest, as you often get in those sort of quite picturesque towns that are far away from lots of, sort of big shops and stuff. So we used to just go into like this derelict school and do Ouija boards, and we used to and it was sort of a brilliant upbringing in a way. So it was a way to kind of include elements of that without it being about me, because she isn't me, and Foley isn't Matt, but I was able to draw on bits of myself and bits of my friends.
Well, it felt very clearly. I as someone who's lived in London all his life, I really like this depiction of a small town, which is not somewhere I've ever lived. And there's a place in it as well called the Arch, isn't there? Which is a strand of the story. Which that was very vivid to me as well. This what is happening about saving the Arch and all this kind of stuff, and that was very powerful. And I kind of felt that as much as the characters. When you were writing it, were you very? I mean, you do lots of different things, and how was your? Did you manage to put people go? When you read those books about writing, they go trying to be up at 5 a.m. and do your first 1,000 words before breakfast. Yeah. Oh, okay. And did you manage to have a routine like that? Did you want a routine like that?
I did a little bit of that, but I just had a young child when I started it, and then had another baby in the middle of it. So I sort of tried to do that, and then the baby was waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning anyway. So I was like, I'm going to get up at 2 in order to do 2 hours work before he gets up. No, I'm just going to go insane. So it was ways of finding pockets of time, and that was a bit tricky, especially in lockdown. When lockdown hit, I had just handed in the first draft, and I was really glad about that, because then I was getting notes from my third editor, who hasn't left to open her own street food business. She's called Lettuce though, so it actually would work. She was really great. Ellie Doughty ICE, which I hadn't ever heard of. She's so great, and from the beginning she sort of really got it. She gave me these notes at the beginning of lockdown, and then that was in a way the hardest bit, even though I felt that writing the first draft was difficult, because it's like, someone said the other day, writing a first draft of anything, it's like you're kind of gathering all the materials and assembling it, but also living in it at the same time. And I did find that at times that I was sort of trying to hold it up, but I also did really, really enjoy it in the way that you can enjoy going for a run in the rain, where you feel like, oh my god, I'm so alive. I sort of felt like that writing the first draft. And then when I got my notes and was doing the rewrites, that was in lockdown, and that was hard. Because we were all in different situations in lockdown, weren't we? But having young kids and trying to work was my hardest problem, and trying to feel like I was giving them time, and also I had this deadline, so I'd sort of go up to the spare room and then look at my notes, but sometimes my brain just couldn't, especially early on. This is not set in a pandemic, and I couldn't imagine anything ever not being set. And they were like in the pub, and I was like, they're in a pub. They're in a pub, they're sitting next to each other, and they're eating sausage rolls. Like, is that ever going to happen again? So that was really weird. And then actually, as the months went on, it just helps to have a deadline, doesn't it? I was like, well, you've got to imagine those sausage rolls. The
sausage rolls haven't stuck with me, but I'm going to go back now and check them.
They're only mentioned once, actually.
And were you managing to, with 2 small kids, like, were you trying to go, I'm going to get 500 words, just something done every day, or?
Yeah, I did, and I think I'm really results orientated. Like, I think I respond quite well to that. If you read a lot of writing things, they'll say, like, aim for X amount a day. So I spent a lot of time Googling how many words different writers do.
And that, in a way, is some of the work done. If it says write 1,000 words a day, but you spend an hour Googling, you only need to do 400.
Exactly. So I think the only person who does more than about 1,000 to 1,500 is Philip Pullman, who does. Is that right?
I've never heard of him. What's he done?
Yeah, exactly. So I think he just works in that sort of 9 to 5 way. He often produces a lot more than that. But it made me feel a lot better that most people were producing between like 500 and 1,500 on this website. And so I would aim for 1,000 a day. And then that is one of the things that made me feel like, good, is it? Because I think when you are creating something, it's quite chaotic and you're trying to pull a lot of strands together. So for me, it's really good to have something kind of linear through that. It's like, this is what you're aiming for. It doesn't matter if you don't necessarily hit it every day, but it's like a thing to aim for. However, that kind of went to pot when we were doing homeschooling and other bits and bobs of work as well, and in lockdown that normally I would have been able to give a lot more.
And you were having to do it at home, I guess, voiceovers.
Yeah, all doing it at home.
Yeah.
And I did a voiceover under the ironing board really early on. I'm very bad with technology, as you know. And we'd been given this mic, and my back had gone. I went to the woods near Farquhar Road with the